এটা
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ
ওকে আমাদের
হ্যাঁ
স্টার্ট
এখন দেখাচ্ছে এই জিনিস
এটা দেখি আসলে আসবে না
এ বাবা,
এই ক্যামেরা ফেল মারলো
আবার
গেম না এক্সট্রা
না 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 আচ্ছা হোক, আমি এটা থেকে করবো, আপনি জাস্ট লাইভ করুন ওটা থেকে। হ্যাঁ আমি
ঠিক
এটা
আছে
থেকে কথা বলবো, অসুবিধা নেই।
লেকিন কি জয়েন করবো নাকি
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ জয়েন করুন জয়েন করুন।
আজকাল শোনা যাচ্ছে?
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ স্যার শোনা যাচ্ছে স্যার।
হ্যাঁ স্যার শোনা যাচ্ছে।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে।
আচ্ছা হাসিবুল্লাহ, আপনি ওইটাতে যা 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 আসবে, আপনি শুধু ইউটিউব লাইভ কি শুরু হয়ে গেছে, লিঙ্কটা একটু আমাকে শেয়ার করুন একটু ভালোভাবে।
আপনার চ্যানেলের নামটা বলুন
আর নাম্বার হচ্ছে
আপনার চ্যানেলে যান পেয়ে যাবেন
চ্যানেলে যেতে হবে,
চ্যানেল ছিল
আসকর সরকার ছিল।
আর কি হোয়াটসঅ্যাপে করবো
হ্যাঁ করুন করুন। একটা বেশি হলে হবে না।
দেখেন কারো কথা
হ্যাঁ
কোথায় পাঠাবেন
আরে
তাহলে লিঙ্কটা
আপনি একটা এইটাতে পাঠিয়ে দিন না, লিঙ্ক শুরু হয়ে গেছে তো। সাইডটা হঠাৎ আপনার ফুল চার্জ হয়েছে, শুনছি শুনতে। আচ্ছা আপনি ওখান থেকে লগ ইন করে এন্ট্রি করতে থাকুন। হ্যাঁ
লিঙ্কটা একবার দেন তো দেখি ভয়েস আসছে নাকি দেখি
ল্যাপটপ একটা খুলুন। হ্যাঁ ম্যাম আমি তো শেয়ার করছিলাম। হ্যাঁ এইটা তো এন্ট্রি করুন এন্ট্রি করুন।
অ্যাডমিট করতে অটো অ্যাডমিট করা আছে তো ওটা ঢুকে যাচ্ছে
ওরা আছে।
অটো করা আছে
আচ্ছা ঠিক করুন। এইটা সামনে ওইটা চলছিল, আপনার যখন এটা লাগবে। স্যার জয়েন করলে কথা বললেন, ওটা তো প্রিন্সিপাল।
লাইভ স্ট্রিমে একবার লিঙ্কটা দিবেন তো আমাকে হ্যাঁ হোয়াটসঅ্যাপে আপনাকে মেসেজ করলাম না কারণ আপনার সাউন্ডটা ঠিকঠাক যাচ্ছে নাকি ওটা দেখবো
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা স্যার, একটু কাইন্ডলি বুঝছেন। আচ্ছা স্যার, একটু কাইন্ডলি এই এই অডিওটা কি করে গেল? এই শব্দ তো এই হলো, এই বাতা হয়ে যাবে।
দাদা আপনি রেকর্ড থাকুন। আরে কত এত একটু হচ্ছে কেন? Good morning. To all of you, with great pleasure, I, on behalf of the Department of English, Sri Narayan Rameshwar Fatehpuria College, extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you gathered here today. Today is the first day of our two-day international virtual conference on women in South Asian literature, texts and contexts. South Asian literature encompasses a rich tapestry of literary traditions, languages, cultures, and histories from the subcontinent, spanning countries such as India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan, and the Maldives. South Asian literature reflects the diverse experiences, struggles, triumphs, and complexities of the people. Women in South Asian narratives that reflect the region's diverse cultures, histories, and social norms. From the ancient epics to contemporary novels, poetry, and short stories, South Asian literature offers a nuanced exploration of the experiences, struggles, and triumphs of women across various socio-economic backgrounds, castes, and religions. Today, we gathered from different corners of the globe, united by our shared passion for literature and our commitment to amplifying the voices of women in South Asian literature. Over the next couple of days, we will embark on a journey of exploration, dialogue, and discovery as we delve into the rich tapestry of narratives penned by these remarkable writers. Now, I request our principal, Dr. Suhas Rai sir, to deliver the inaugural address. Sir, now it's to you.
Thank you, Bhaskar. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Absolutely audible, sir.
Thank you. Very good morning to all of you present on this virtual platform. Dear participants, organizers, paper presenters, and resource persons, it is giving me immense pleasure to inaugurate this two-day international webinar on women in South Asian literature, texts and contexts. It is a proud moment for our college. The Department of English of our college, in collaboration with the IQAC of this college, has organized this webinar. I would like to thank the teachers and students of this department for their efforts and initiatives behind this event. I am very much pleased to inform you that more than 90 papers have been accepted for presentation in this webinar, out of which 10 are from abroad. Papers came from China, Bangladesh, and different states of India. Amongst the resource persons, one is from Colombo University, Sri Lanka. Mrs. Asantha U. Attanayake will address in the plenary session. I would like to welcome her and convey my heartfelt gratitude to her for being with us, managing her busy schedule. Other resource persons belong to University of Bombay, University of North Bengal, RGU, and many more renowned universities. I welcome all the resource persons, professors, research scholars involved in this two-day international webinar and want to express thanks and gratitude. The topic chosen for discussion is not only very much relevant in the context of modernity, but also very important area of research. Women have multiple roles in today's society, from the high altar of goddess to the lowest share of prostitute. She is very much loving as a mother. She is a princess as a daughter. She is a peerless as a sister. She is the most important and beautiful friend as a darling wife. Her role varies person to person, situation to situation, and even time to time. In literature, we like to see the construction of women characters of varied nature. Actually, the role of women has expanded noticeably with time. Women have come up with so many capabilities that now it has become difficult to portray a character of women by watching her face or physique. Now we can find women as teachers, drivers, pilots, lawyers, doctors, cops, army officers, artists, engineers, dancers, singers, writers, models, and many more. The role of producing children for the families and rearing up of them has been marginalized. New and newer avenues of professional women are emerging. They have become determining factors in the families. The role of patriarchy is gradually diminishing. The decision-making power is going to women, and with this, women are empowered. Women are not only part of the society with society given duties and responsibilities, but also they have emerged as an independent entity of its own. They are promulgating feminism. Certainly, they have few important issues, but they are not altogether correct. Readers are very much eager to know from the pens of female writers about their views and opinions. In mythology of India, we find the goddess Durga with 10 hands. In today's world, women are doing lots of work simultaneously as the goddess Durga. We want no more deprivation of women. We want equal participation of women in every walk of the life. Still, a section of women folk remain below the average. The discrimination they face, the torture they endure, the life they lead, no human can even imagine. All positive and negative events occur in the present day situation should be reflected in the literature. Healthy discussion should be done with this literature, and people will find out the way to the better decisions. I hope this two-day international webinar will achieve its success to the desired level. With this, I would like to conclude my inaugural speech. Hope you will enjoy the entire schedule and help us in conducting the webinar in a peaceful mode. I would like to thank Sri Bhaskar Chandra Sarkar, head of the Department of English, for arranging such an interesting international webinar. Thank you all. Have a good day. Over to Bhaskar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for your thought-provoking lecture. Now, I would like to request Dr. Manoy Kumar Ghosh, the coordinator of IQAC of Sivanarayan Rameshwar Fatehpuria College, to deliver a note regarding this today international virtual conference. Now it's to you, Maloda.
Thank you, Bhaskar. Good morning, all. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests and distinguished speakers, Professor Amit Bhattacharya from University of Gurgaon, Miss Asanto U. Attanayake from Colombo University, Professor Jinia Mitra from North Bengal University, Dr. Sanjukta Chatterjee from RGU, and Dr. Abdul Wahab, Associate Professor. Welcome to the seminar. Welcome to our seminar, Women in South Asian Literature, Text and Context, organized by Department of English in collaboration with IQAC of our college. Today, we embark on a journey to explore the rich tapestry of stories, voices, and experiences of women in South Asian literature. In the pages of South Asian literature, we find a countless number of narratives that depicts the lives, struggles, and success of women. These stories not only reflect the diversity of culture within the region, but also shed light on the universal themes of love, identity, resilience, and empowerment. Throughout history, women in South Asian literature have been portrayed as complex characters, navigating through social norms, traditions, and personal aspirations. From ancient epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata to contemporary works by authors like Arundhati Rai, Anita Desai, Jhumpa Lahiri, Kamala Das, etc., women have been central to the literary landscape of South Asia. However, beyond the text lies the context. The socio-cultural, political, economical realities that shape and influence the portrayal of women in literature. Today, we will delve deeper into this context, examining how issues such as gender inequality, patriarchy, colonialism, and globalization have impacted a representation of women in South Asian literature. As we embark on this exploration, let us open our hearts and minds to diverse voices and perspectives that South Asian literature has to offer. Let us engage in meaningful dialogue, challenges our assumptions, and celebrate the resilience and creativity of women writers in the region. Last, together, let us unravel the intricate tapestry of women in South Asian literature in terms of tradition, modernity, and change. Thank you. Wishing a great success of our today's seminar. Thank you, Bhaskar.
Thank you, Maloda. Thank you for such engaging lecture. And now it's time to move to our keynote address session. And all of you know that the keynote address will be delivered by Dr. Amit Bhattacharya. And just handing him the mic, let me say something about him. Presently, Dr. Amit Bhattacharya is a professor of English at the University of Gaurbanga, Malda, West Bengal. He did his master's and PhD from the University of North Bengal. He has over 20 years of experience in teaching and research and has contributed more than 30 essays to journals and anthologies of critical essays in India and abroad. His areas of research include post-colonial studies, trauma studies, intersectionality studies, and spatial criticism. Now, I would like to request Amit Bhattacharya sir to begin the keynote.
Well, thank you, Bhaskar. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir. Perfectly audible and visible.
Okay. Well, good morning to all of you. Today, it gives me immense pleasure to be with you and sharing the responsibility of discussing this very important and relevant topic, not only for the academia, but also for common people. Let us discuss the topic, the representation of South Asian women in literature, texts and contexts. We all know that, as our honorable principal was pointing out, that the entire gamut of financial and estimable gamut of relationship and response is somehow occupied by the fair sex, from the high and mighty goddess to the lowly prostitute, sex slaves. So obviously, we must give very, very important consideration to more than 48.85% of the South Asian population. I'm talking about women, obviously, who are in number almost 94 crores. And unfortunately, so far as educational condition of women is concerned, the enrollment rate for education is less than 50%. And more than 75 of 100 illiterates in South Asia are women. So far as their financial status is concerned, we know that 64% of South Asian women are self-employed in the unorganized sector. These are essential facts that will help us understand the situation of South Asian women today. Obviously, the data that I am quoting comes from very respectable United Nations Development Project, and the date was 2022. So we can be reasonably certain about the accuracy of the data provided to our present day context. Now, at the very outset of my presentation, I should, following John Henry Newman, give what is called an apologia pro selecta sua, or a defense of my own selections. Because I have used and usurped the title of Mary Wollstonecraft's treatise, Vindication of the Rights of Woman, and tentatively entitled my presentation today as Indication of the Plights of Woman, a probe into South Asian lives and letters. So, I must give you some kind of an explanation for using the plural number in pointing out plight and life. You see, the plight of woman, as we often say, in the patriarchal world is often very, very dismal. But you see, because South Asia is a very vast area of the landmass of this earth, and financially, culturally, politically, it's a diverse place. So the plight of an upper caste, upper class woman in say greater Kailash of New Delhi will differ considerably from women folk in a village like Ha in North Bhutan near the Chinese border, maybe. So obviously, when feminism clamors for equality in the West, as the IQAC coordinator was pointing out, we have to shift the radar to think about empowerment. Women's empowerment is very, very important. But you know, there are prejudices, there are prides, and there are obstacles galore in the path of women to fulfill her destiny and destination. We see that so far as the lives of women may be concerned, women lives in different ways. And as students of literature, we must point out that women in our consideration should be discussed as human beings, as writers, as characters, and also as readers. So, the lives may be lives as lived or led, lives as represented, and lives as read or interpreted, because often meaning and signification varies and oscillates, you know, because of the kind of interpretation, because of the kind of spin that we choose to give to it. And that's why in today's discussion, I will obviously try to talk about women as beings. I have already given you some essential facts about South Asian women, so far as the world of statistics go. And then women as writers, women as characters, both types and individuals, and women as readers. Why is it important? Will come clear when we take up for discussion some of the very, very important writers from the 8 countries: India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Nepal, and Bhutan. Let me discuss the representation of women, for women, and by women in terms of 2 categories. Obviously, in the first place, I will take up for discussion representation of women by women, that means women writers. But at a later time, I may have to deal with the representation of women by male writers as well. Okay. At this juncture, let me discuss some very relevant writers from the South Asian region who belong to these countries that I have already pointed out. Before discussing them, however, I must give a disclaimer, meaning that I have not chosen, in all cases, the most important women writers, maybe, but those that I find very relevant to the topic that I have chosen to talk of. Okay. Let's begin our discussion with my favorite poet, Kamala Das from India, who was mentioned by our IQAC coordinator as well. Let me just take up for discussion two of Kamala Das's poems. Maybe in the passing I may refer to some others as well. An introduction from Summer in Calcutta may be the first poem that I may choose to discuss in some detail. We all know that it is a kind of a poetic manifesto of and for Kamala Das, because it was being written after India's independence, when the ossified remains of a very anglicized literary canon was being torn down by the young Turks like Nisib Ezekiel, like K.K.N. Daruwala, like Jayanta Mahapatro, like Kamala Das, Eunice D'Souza, and their ilk. An introduction has, for the sake of our convenience, we may talk about two parts of the poem. We all know that the first part deals with women's writing, and especially women's writing in English. You see, don't write in English. English is not your mother tongue. Is a very patriarchal command born out of colonial hangover. Because the dictate here is twofold. Don't write and don't write in English. Don't write in English because it is not your mother tongue. You may not be so proficient in it as to write. But the predominant command is don't write, because writing is a means of fighting back that is at the disposal of women, paying back patriarchy in its own coin. We see Kamala Das says, I don't know politics, but can repeat the names of those in power. Why? Because as a woman, she is not expected and, surprise, surprise, not accepted to know politics. She can only parrot the names of those in power. And here we may bring in very conveniently Bhabha's concept of mimicry. But the tough cookie as she really is, Kamala Das chooses to write about her own life and those of others, maybe her gender equals. You see, in the second part of the poem, there is a very sorry picture of woman's life. Because she was born in Malabar, very brown, because she was expected to fit in or belong and choose an identity for herself. When she refused, when she transgressed, she is ostracized by society. The societal double standard that leads patriarchy to accept the male eye and accommodate him like a sword in its sheath equally motivates patriarchy to reject her, to die with a rattle in her throat, seeking love from all and sundry, but being disillusioned at the end. So her plaintive plea, I too call myself I, becomes some kind of an ineffectual wail, as we call it in Bengali, Oronne Rodon. You see, Kamala Das, contrary to the view that she is not very well read, did not hesitate to use and usurp Shakespeare's very famous and masculinist text, Seven Ages of Man, in her poem, The Seven Ages of Woman. And in doing so, Kamala Das has very creditably altered the case in which the adulation of the male by society is replaced by all kinds of vilification, neglect, discrimination, and downright cruelty that is meted out to the fair sex. As a result, the only time that the girl child has been allowed to utter a sound in the poem, in the discursive sight of society, is when she is just born. She knows fact that she is not wanted or loved, neither by her condescending mother, nor by her mildly tolerant father, who can only give her cheap toys, a watch with Mickey Mouse embossed on its dial, or maybe a cheap fountain pen. And when she grows up without giving any consideration to her desires, she is married off. She is married off prematurely. She is impregnated prematurely. She is made a mother prematurely, and she, in some ways, is subjected to ill usage from honeymoon onwards. So the solicitous craving for love is frustrated at every step, and even her child grows out of needs and out of arms, goes to other arms and other places. And the mother is discovered to have very, very repulsive personality by the ungrateful child. So again, the fate pointed out in an introduction is dished out to the woman at the end of 7 Ages of Woman. Whereas the 7 Ages of Man gives an upward graph of a man's respectability and usefulness, the 7 Ages of Woman gives an entirely different downward slide to the woman's life. And herein, Kamala Das can very officiously use up someone, say, the Song of Myself by Walt Whitman to write someone else's song by pointing out her capacity to speak for million voices. The unique multivocalism gives the lie to the common feminist wail that the subject of a woman's story is always the same. It is only her own life. It is the unique breadth and elasticity of Kamala Rash's poetic vision that allows her to speak for million voices. And this conveniently leads us to deal with the second writer that I have chosen to touch upon. Yes, I am talking about a Pakistani writer, a diasporic writer, Kamila Shamsie. Yes, I have taken up for discussion only one novel by Kamila Shamsie. That is Cartography, spelled with a K. Cartography is very significant and pivotal to the oeuvre of Kamila Shamsie because, it deals with the unique game of apportioning landmass that is the preserve of the powers that be. As a result, the first partition that tore asunder the landmass of the Indian subcontinent into India and Pakistan is not allowed to rest, but leads to a second partition, that of Pakistan into Pakistan and Bangladesh. And that has very significant ramifications for the characters. I will talk about three of them, all women. Two friends, Mahin and Yasmin, who fell in love with two best friends. These two women were also best friends. And they fell in love with two male best friends, Zafar and Ali respectively. But because Mahin was a Bengali, during the civil war of 1971, that ultimately led to the creation of Bangladesh, her relationship with Zafar, or Zaf, as he is called in the text often, falls through. And the two friends, Mahid and Yasmin, swap their fiancés. Ali marries Mahin and Zafar marries Yasmin. You see how the cartography of erstwhile one country, Pakistan, terribly alters the lives of two women is pointed out in and through the presentation of these friends. And Yasmin's daughter, Rahin, the heroine of this novel, has to contend with an altered life because of her love for Mahin and Ali's son, Karim, and Karim's many resentments to his parents on the one hand and to Zafar, his would have been, should have been, or could have been male parent. We all see how the condition of Karachi, torn asunder by internecine conflicts, is indicative of the life of Rahim and the family of the main characters. Ali, Mahin and Karim have to migrate to London, and ultimately, as it does to many diasporans, this relocation leaves them adrift in the journey of life. The relationship between Mahin and Ali breaks down. Karim is left with a broken down childhood and a dysfunctional family. And after a long time of misery, heartache, and even in some cases danger, Karim and Rahim are brought together by the magic alchemy of love. So the representation of woman is not always all doom and gloom. There is sometimes a silver lining of love. And this leads us to deal with the next writer that I may be tempted to talk about. Yes, I am talking about a Sri Lankan writer, Punyakante Vijayanayake, and her novel, 1966 novel, The Waiting Earth. You see, often we are led astray by our own mistaken ideas about women and women's rights and women's plights, and surprise, by women's choices. Not all women become very assertive. Some women also remain subservient, maybe peaceful, maybe, but very powerful, very strong in their peace, in their tranquility, and in some cases, even in their subservience. The Waiting Earth very skillfully juxtaposes the woman with the nation. So Selohami, the female character, becomes some kind of a typification of Sri Lanka. As the Waiting Earth of Sri Lanka expects riches of progress, riches of peace, prosperity, and tranquility, similarly, the pregnant Selohami expects a male child to go on with the male line of the family. You see, the often very covert, but sometimes very overt parallelisms with Paul S. Bach's Good Earth and say Kamala Markande's Nectar in a Sheep is for all to see and show. And here we may think about the controversy that this subservience, the polemics that this subservience may breed in the minds of my audience. And that's why now I am going to a very controversial woman writer from Bangladesh, Taslima Nasrin, who in her 1992 book, Anando Puroskar winning book, Nirvachito column or selected columns, gave us a book to rage over. Almost 100 years after the prophetic and visionary voice of say Rokeya Shakhawat Hussain. You see, the life that this Nirvachito column or selected columns, it's basically a selection of newspaper articles and columns written by Taslima Nasreen from 1989 to 1990 in Ajker Kagoj, this newspaper. This actually gives us a none too flattering presentation of women's lives in Bangladesh, in South Asia, and by extension in the world at large. Excuse me. Yes, very significantly, the first column that Taslima Nasreen has selected for this book gives us the vignette of utter, thoughtless, and motiveless villainy of a young boy who tortured the speaker or narrator when she was a young woman of 18 or 19. This boy actually placed a half-smoked cigarette, burning cigarette, onto her arm, left laughing, and left the woman in tears and in rage. And you see, again, very significantly, the last column tells us about Eve teasing in a very pseudo-humorous way, but that draws on our sensibility. You see, there were certain boards that advised women to seek the help of cops if and when teased by Eve teasers. But it was no coincidence that sometimes these girls, these Eves, had to take help of the teasers to protect themselves from the teasing of the cops who were there allegedly or apparently to save them. See, it's a feminist work. It shows how neither family, nor the state, nor even religion could protect the fair sex from the unfeeling cruelty and in some cases strategic malevolence of patriarchy. Okay. We have dwelt long in controversy. Let me take a plunge to a very disturbed land. I'm talking about Afghanistan. And the writer that I have in mind is Nadia Hashimi, another diasporic writer, now based in the United States, and now she is also a senator, maybe. Yes, the book that I have chosen to talk on is The Pearl That Broke Its Shell. It was published in 2014, and it shows us the operation of a very significant social practice in Afghanistan, that of Bacha Posh, whereby in a family without any male child, a girl could be dressed up as a boy and led to behave or masquerade as one, receiving for a time all the privileges of young boyhood, but destined ultimately to return to her woman's frame and woman's predicament at puberty, and that too for good. This novel links two lives, the lives of Rahima and her great grandmother Shakiba. Despite the vast gap in time, one is an early 20th century woman, Shakiba, and the other, an early 21st century woman, Rahima. Both at some time in their lives became bachaposh, becoming Shakib and Rahim for the time being. But how they had to go back to their woman's frame with and in spite of all the scars that one transient stint of freedom and power had left. Here, by describing the lives of Rahima and Shakiba, one associated with a warlord Abdul Khalek, whose fourth wife Rahima ultimately is destined to become. Another, Shakiba, associated with an Afghan king whose harem she had guarded for some time. In both cases, the condition of women, the many wives and the wretched lives that these two women were forced to live becomes emblematic of the lives of the Afghan women. When nations are broken down, when civilizations topple, Bamiyan Buddhas are bulldozed and shelled, pulverized maybe, and along with it is and a predominantly secular civilization is also pulverized. And how women become the worst kind of victims of this upheaval is pointed out poignantly by Nadia Hashmi in this. Okay. Now, I know that most of the participants will talk about Indian authors, some on Bangladeshi or Pakistani authors, maybe one or two on Afghan authors. But I was really very pleased to see that one of you, my young friends, the presenters, did choose to talk on Kunjang Choden, the Bhutanese writer. Yes, I am going to talk about Choden's book, The Circle of Karma. It was the first English novel to have been written by a Bhutanese woman. It shows the life of Somo, an unlettered girl, the oldest of 12 children, and when she becomes 15 years old, already 5 of her siblings have managed to breathe their last. The daughter of a lay monk and a housewife, Somo knows and is taught to know by patriarchy, by conservatism, that home is the only secure place for women. But she is destined, maybe predestined, to leave that cozy confines and travel across Bhutan to India, brave all kinds of dangers in search of her own identity and maybe a life partner who will understand and whom she may understand in return. So ultimately, this becomes not only a circle of karma, but also a coming of age narrative, whereby the ultimate peace and tranquility of Somo's married life may have been the fulfillment and reward of Satkarma. Yes, Nepal has not been touched. And I am talking about a very, very interesting writer of feminist sensibilities, Parijat, or Vishnu Kumari Vaiva. Her novel will give us a cause for discussion. You know, in this novel, Parijat's novel, you'll see that Shakambari in Sirishko Fool or the Blue Mimosa is a strong woman. She is not like her other sisters, like Mujura, a quintessential female with all sweetness and charms. She speaks her mind, she acts her will, and often does not hesitate to cross swords with the male. Here, Suyog, who feels drawn towards her, is changed by this strong woman. She is forced to leave aside his mark complacency. Once Suyog had raped 3 women during the war, and having rationalized this act as having been occasioned by an understanding or an apprehension of instant danger and instant disease, Suyog is forced to reckon with a guilty conscience. She wants the companionship of Shakambari. He knows that either Shakambari will give immense favors like Hemingway's La Mar, the sea, in The Old Man and the Sea, or withhold the same. In both cases, either Suyog will be happy or he will be redeemed. So when he at one time holds and kisses Shakambari, the girl only looks at him deeply, strides off, and vanishes into the house. Suyog is left distraught, and after months comes to know of Shakambari's death. So in a way, Shakambari becomes the kind of a redeemer who has to suffer and even have to die to redeem errant humanity. And in this case, errant patriarchy. Yes. We have dealt with 7 of the 8 nations, but left out the Maldives. I am talking about Farah Didi. Yeah, Didi is not the elder sister. Didi is her surname. You see, she is a poet, a diplomat, a democracy and human rights worker, and an intellectual of the top drawers from the Maldives. And her recent works deal with the 2012 coup d'etat in Maldives that toppled a democratically elected government and re-established the dominance of the military. People struggle against this usurpation of power by the forces, and the aftermath thereof has been dealt with by Didi in many of her recent poems. I'm going to talk about two poems only. One is Hearthstone, where she is forced to own up to a divide between us and them. Meaning, the authorities, the military authorities, who have the hearts of stone, but who are persistently baffled and assailed by the non-violent but persistent resistance from the masses. So the hearts of stone are met with the hearts of sponge, elastic in love, strong to absorb and absolve all kinds of atrocities. And the second poem is going to be I Will Forgive. Actually, this is about a woman who participated in the anti-government agitations, was brutally manhandled by a very young police officer who could have been her own son. So even though she is beaten up, she is humiliated by this boy drunk on power, she has strength of character enough to say that when her turn will come, she will forgive. This forgiveness does not betoken any kind of weakness, but on the contrary, shows enormous strength of will, a determination to suffer, to forgive, but not to forget. Not to forget because such heinous crimes may not be allowed to go on or to recur anywhere in this world. At this juncture, I must talk about, say, the representation of women by male writers as well. You see, I have seen that one of you, my dear presenters, will talk about Saadat Hasan Manto. I will not discuss Manto, even though Thanda Ghost, Holdo, all these short stories and sketches show us a harrowing picture of partition and the plight of women who were raped, were humiliated, dehumanized, and in a nutshell, made scapegoats or pawns in the struggle for power, in the struggle for supremacy or superiority that the two ethnic groups had engaged in. I will just talk about Sharat Chandra Chattopadhyay, the famous Bengali novelist, by referring to Srikanto, where Sharat Chandra talks about four women, Annada Didi, the always suffering and forgiving woman who could even allow society and her own family to misconstrue her act of devotion to her scoundrel of a husband, Shahuji, because she considered it her bounden duty to follow and comfort her husband. Then there is also Rajlokhi, true in love, loyal to her friends, but at the same time very strong in character. Abhaya, a rebellious woman who could ask Srikanto this question: why should woman always have to suffer? Why should woman always be told to follow her lord, her husband, even when that lord, that husband is worthless, even when that husband is abusive, neglectful, and utter rubbish in every sense of the term? And then there is also Kamalata, another kind of woman who could forgive, who could nurse in the true Vaishnavite tradition, and ultimately who could refuse the advances of a smitten young man, Srikanto, and leave him for a life of freedom, for a life unburdened with any kind of strong attachment. I have come to the concluding part of my presentation. I know that this presentation has not been comprehensive or very insightful by any stretch of the imagination. But because I have had to traverse a very, very large and varied conceptual path, I may crave your indulgence and forgiveness. I will conclude by talking about the operation of power. A very famous and favorite theorist of mine, John Kenneth Galbraith, has talked about power in three denominations: condign power, that forces obedience by threatening unpleasant consequences of refusal; compensatory power, that secures conformity by offering something in return, a compensation, a gift, a largesse, or even a bribe; and conditioned power, a very insidious and subtle form of power that offers moral high ground as the preferred goal and the cause for acceptance of the authority. You see, South Asian women in particular, and women, and all kinds of subaltern groups throughout the world have to contend with all these three kinds of power. So, whereas in the case of someone like the rape victim mentioned in, say, the Blue Nemo, talks about the operation of condign power when the compensatory power is in operation by coaxing someone like Padarjan of Rahim or Rahima to marry her off to the warlord Abdul Khalek. There is also conditioned power that lets, and in some cases, ideologically forces Selohami to remain subservient to the wishes of her husband. With this, I come to the end of my presentation. Thanks to the audience and the authorities of SR Fatehpuria College for being patient with me. Have you a very pleasant 2 days of deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for such thought-provoking and engaging lecture. Certainly, it has thrown light to some unexplored aspects regarding women in South Asian literature. And if any of the audiences has any questions or observations, feel free to ask within a couple of minutes. Okay then. Since I did not get any response, so here officially we end the keynote session, and now we will move towards the next, that is the plenary session. And the plenary session, in the plenary session, Dr. Shanta U. Atanaike will deliver the talk, and Dr. Sanjukta Chatterjee ma'am from Raiganj University will hold the chair. And now let me briefly introduce Dr. Sanjukta Chatterjee ma'am. She is an associate professor and head of the Department of English in Raiganj University. Now she is the second term of her headship since 2021. She has served as former director and Center for Women's Studies in Raiganj University. She was also the visiting faculty of Kanyastree University. She has contributed numerous articles on literary topics in various national and international journals. She has also presented papers in various national and international seminars in India. She has also been invited to deliver lectures on literature in various universities and colleges in India. She has been invited as a resource person and keynote speaker in numerous webinars and seminars too. She has been appointed for the evaluation of theses by various universities of India. Her research interests include feminism, gender studies, Indian mythology, Indian classical literature, Northeast literature, post-humanism, eco-criticism, science fiction, film and literature, adaptation and translation, etc. And last but not the least, she is a social worker and gender activist. Notably, she has been associated with one of the largest international NGO and serving towards upliftment of downtrodden people and underprivileged women in order to promote their social and economic standing. Now, it's to you, ma'am.
Good morning. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am. Audible, ma'am.
Good morning. It's a very, very beautiful morning today because we had a wonderful keynote from Professor Amit Bhattacharya. And I am so honored to introduce Professor Asantha U. Atanaike. Kindly let me know if I'm still audible because I caught a bad cold yesterday due to the change of weather and my voice is almost gone.
No, sir. No, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Professor Asantha U. Atanaike. She has served as a senior lecturer attached to the University of Colombo, Sri Lanka. She received her BA from the University of Peradeniya, Sri Lanka, and a PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. She was a Fulbright Research Scholar at Pennsylvania State University, USA. She is also a HKSEE alumna at Harvard University. Her thesis, Undergraduate ELT in Sri Lanka, Policy, Practice and Perspectives for South Asia, was published in 2017 by Cambridge Scholars Publishers, UK. Post-Colonial Curriculum Practices in South Asia, Building Confidence to Speak English, was published by Routledge Publishers in 2019 from UK. And her forthcoming book, An Action Research Handbook for English Language Teaching in South Asia, which she has co-authored with her husband, Colonel Adam L. Barborich, is a recommended text for teacher education by the Ministry of Education, Sri Lanka. At present, she is living in the USA. She served as visiting associate professor at Ohio State University. An award-winning translator, she has translated 3 novels from English into Sinhala, her mother tongue. She also has a collection of poetry to her credit. At present, she is compiling her memoirs, living in Sri Lanka with a white husband. Today, she is going to deliver the plenary talk on how do standards define us, and I am so very honored to introduce Professor Asantha U. Attanaike. Ma'am. Asantha, ma'am. Everyone, am I audible?
Hi, thank you so much for introducing me, Dr. Sanjukta Chatterjee, and thank you very much, Professor Bhaskar, for inviting me for this session, and I'm so glad to see Professor Amit Bhattacharya. We have met before virtually at a similar conference, and yeah, with all that, I want to share my slides with you, and let me see. Present now. Okay. Can somebody please help me doing this? Because I want to share my PowerPoint presentation, and what I get is like I can share the websites, but not the PowerPoint. So,
Ma'am, there will be an option window. Okay.
Yeah, I just clicked on that. Yeah, I got it. And okay, now where is my slideshow? It's open, but I cannot see it.
Okay, ma'am. If you are if you have PPT, then select the option entire screen, ma'am. Okay.
Yeah, right. Got it. Okay. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, right. Can everybody see my slides?
Yes, ma'am. It is visible, ma'am.
Okay. Righto. Am I audible enough?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, you are. You are.
Okay, righto. Now, only problem is my screen to me is actually very blurred, and I should rename the thing also. It's going as my husband's name. I'm sorry, it has to be Asantha U. Attanaike. I hope you don't mind. Right? So here I am. Okay. So my topic that I have selected today is how do standards define us? So now this is not one of my regular presentations, I would say, because I am into English language teaching, and therein again speaking is my speaking related research is my interested areas. But today I thought let me talk about something different, and as Dr. Bhaskar told me, this is in relation to International Women's Day activities. So I thought it's all the more better that I speak about something different. So my topic is how do standards define us? So herein what I decided was to talk about first the definition or meaning of standards, and actually when I searched through the web, then I I looked at the Merriam-Webster dictionary definitions and a few others, but then what caught my eyes mostly was the Google Google meaning. That is the Google definition. So I chose that. And according to Google, standard is defined as a level of quality or attainment. That is one. And then the other one is an idea or thing used as a measure, norm, or model in comparative evaluation. So I thought these two definitions fit very well with what I'm going to talk about under the topic. So I repeat the Google definition of standard. One is a level of quality of attainment, and the other one is an idea or thing used as a measure or norm or model in comparative evaluations. Here I must tell you that I took the definition of standards as a noun only. So, and then I would like to talk about some personal narratives. I believe looking back has kind of defined me and my standards. And looking back, they're very interesting. And I must tell you that now I've been living in the USA for about 3 years this time. And I have that time and I would say mood to look back at my own past, my own life, and personal life as well as professional life, now that I'm away from Sri Lanka, my country. So partly I become a third person when I look at my own past back in Sri Lanka, as I said, both at a personal level and as a professional level. So it's very interesting when you look at your own context with a third person's perspective. Actually, as an outsider, and it gives you a very different perspective of your own past, your own life that you left behind. So now, when I talk about these personal narratives that I consider has defined me, and it's very, very interesting. Now, number one is I've chosen here wearing the sari. As you know, Sri Lankans wear saris just as the Indians do, but our sari is slightly different. It's Kandyan. It's called Kandyan, a national costume for women. So when I wear a sari, Sri Lankan way, I always think of someone, and that someone is my role model in wearing a sari. Now, who is this role model? That is my school principal. When I was at Mahamaya Girls College as a student, and from grade 6 onwards, and before that, I studied in 4 different schools because my father, as my father got transferred, then we changed schools. But after grade 6, I was in this particular school, Mahamaya Girls College, and my principal was Mrs. Pilapitia, and she's no more. But the way she wore the Kandyan sari is my ideal. The neatness, the beauty, the kind of elegance, the way she wore that sari, I can never wear. But that I always try to wear the way she wore the Kandyan sari. So that is my standard, my role model in wearing the sari, which I can never, as I repeat this, I know I can never do that, but at the same time, I always try to reach her level. Number 2 is when it comes to husband and wife interactions, relations. So my personal narrative is that now I have divided this into A, argument, B, dispute, more or less the same, I would say, but why I say like A and B as arguments and disputes is in relation to what I remember as my mother and father doing when they argued. Believe it or not, my parents have been married for 57 years. To this date, we have not seen them fighting. And it's unbelievable to anybody, but most people, I would say, but it is true. Because I would take arguments. Now, my mother always had this idea that even though how busy we had been when we were schooling, when we were, before we left home actually for jobs and all. I have 4 siblings, all of us 5, 3 sisters and a brother. And my mother made sure that we had at least one meal together sitting at the table. And I remember when we sit at the table and everybody, starts eating and we talk about different stuff at the same time. And my mother would say something about something that happened. And my father would say, oh, no, I don't think it happened that way. Then my mother would say, no, can't you remember it happened this way? Then my father would say, no, I don't think so. It happened this way. Then my mother would say, I want you to remember very well that it happened not that way. Then my father would say, I want you to remember also it did not happen that way. Then my mother would keep quiet. And the next day, for some reason, God knows what, my father is on her side in relation to the same argument, same discussions they had before, the night before, in front of us. That's one thing. And the B and the B disputes is that we have never seen them mad at each other. But we know my father is very angry for some reason we did not know. But we knew he was angry. This is his way of, this is what he did. In the kitchen, we have a back door which was divided into 2, like the bottom part you can shut and while the top part you can keep open. So my father would go out of the house, closing that back door, the bottom part, with a sharp thud. We all know he is not happy, he's mad at something. That's all. And in less than 5 minutes, he would come through the same door, calling my mother, Kumari, shall we have a tea? Then my mother would immediately say, of course, yes. And she would make a tea. And that's how, in my household growing up, my parents argued. My parents had disputes that we saw. But I must add something else also into this, that I used to be a night owl. I still am. So I used to read a lot and then do all my homework and everything in the middle of the night. So when I was about to go to the bed, I used to go to the bathroom, and then when I had to pass my parents' bedroom, and then I would most of the time hear, at very low, soft voices, a discussion going on in the middle of the night. So later I figured that's when my mother and my father discussed, daily happenings, what to do next, kind of stuff. And then my mother had this rule, because our house was, my ancestral house is located near a small road that crosses our village. So my mother never ever allowed us to talk loud in the kitchen area, because that was the closest to that running path. road. So when we spoke loud, she would say, get out of here. And, if you want to talk here, soft, inside voice kind of thing. And then my father, he used to smoke before I was born, as we were told, but the day I was born, he stopped smoking. And he would drink, but never in front of us. And not every day. He would drink in special occasions like for the New Year and all. Then he would keep his drink bottle somewhere in his bedroom. We knew where it was, but still it is the same. But, but it was never in front of us. But when he went out, drank, get together with his friends and all, he drank, but we were not present. And now the practice is such that when my brother gets home and get together with his friends, now he doesn't drink actually, but when he did, he never did it in front of my parents, my father, my mother. So I think it's coming from what my father used to do, like never drink, never smoke in front of us. And then by the same, the relate to the third one, like not speaking loud to be heard by outsiders. My mother never let us cry in front of outsiders. She would, I cannot remember she saying that you should not cry in front of outsiders, others, but somehow it has gotten into our heads that we should not cry in front of others. And the other thing is that my mother-in-law, my mother's mother-in-law, that's my grandmother, paternal grandmother, used to be a very strict person apparently and very arrogant lady. And she gave a very hard time to my mother when they lived together for a particular period at the beginning of my parents' marriage. And my mother said she used to suffer a lot under her, but when my father came home, she would open the door with a smile, she always said, because my husband came home after work, and then she never wanted to talk about what happened to her during the time of my father's absence, so that mother and son would have disputes. So those are the things she told us after we grew up. The other thing, the last thing, me kneeling in front of the office with a boy, the boy I said in relation to this particular narrative, I remember when I was in grade 4, we were to go to this the next school, St. Nathan's Convent, but then my father got a transfer in the middle of a term, and then we were during that about 3 months or 4, I forget, probably more than one semester, one term. We were sent to our village school until the time came for us to go to the city school. So in the village school, because my father got a transfer to this village school, and no matter wherever he goes, he used to be a teacher among many things, musician, dramatist, ballet dancer, ballet artist, all kinds of stuff he used to be. But he became, in every school, he became the discipline master like in no time. So when we went to our village school for a brief period, my father was the discipline master and I was in grade 4 and I took probably my father's power into my hands. So a village boy told me something and then I got so mad I took off my shoe and slapped him right across his face. And the next thing, that boy said or did something bad to me, so that's why I did that. So the next thing, he and I both were kneeling in front of the office. He for doing actually whatever the wrong action that he did to me kneeling because I took the law into my hands. And who gave us that punishment? My father. Nobody else, my father. So I remember these very well. All these narratives, looking back, are very vivid in my, I would say, mental eye. And I know for a fact that they define my standards today that I follow as standards. They define me as I am today. So with this, now look at the next one. So how do we manifest our standards? At which levels? So we manifest our standards at professional level as at a professional level as different professionals like me as a teacher. I'm sure you guys are, most of you are teachers also, and students also. And then these standards are manifested at a personal level too. Me as a wife now, as a mother, daughter-in-law now, and as a friend, all kinds of stuff. So this is relevant to everybody. We are professional, everybody here, we are professionals at some level, and we all have personal lives. So then why is it important to have and maintain standards? Why do we need standards? Why do we need to have standards? Why do we need to maintain them? So, as teachers, we know students follow us. As teachers, we definitely know students watch us all the time. They follow us. And we are not ourselves. We are a combination of many, many people who influence our lives. So when I go in front of a bunch of students, recently I asked some of the students here, because they were misbehaving actually, a few of them. Then I said, when I stand in front of you, what do I represent? Then they were a little keen and stopped their kind of a little misbehavior. And I said, you know what? We represent not ourselves, but we represent our parents, our teachers, our cultures, and everything that we belong to, but ourselves. So as teachers, when we teach, when we stand in front of our students, when we talk, when we walk, we are being observed by our students all the time. And I remember when I was very young, that I think I must have been 20, 21 when I first got a teaching appointment. And I did not know how to wear a sari at the time, because I was just out of school. And even before I went to college, I got a teaching position because I passed an exam, and then we were given a 1-year training and then sent to schools. And then after that only I went to college to study at the university. But then in this school, we were sent to remote area service, which was mandatory. So this is like 3.5 hours away from my city. And as I said, I did not know how to wear a sari properly. And on top, we had to put our hair up. At the time, I had a little long hair. So we had to put the hair up, we had to wear a sari. And both these were not easy for a young woman like me who were just out of school. So I remember in this remote area school, because it's remote, it became a remote area because it had not a lot of water and it was very dry. And they used to get winds during particular period of the year. The winds would blow with everything that is, around, and with a lot of sand coming with the wind. So when this windy season came, I remember once I realized wind was blowing, I lifted my sari and I ran across the yard to get inside the building. Then one of the students in the grade 11 or 12 class, you know what he told me? Madam, do you think it's nice to run wearing a sari? He asked this and it just made me realize, oh my God, these students are watching me. And see, I was supposed to be teaching English that's my subject that I taught there. But we don't think that, okay, now I did not think that I was supposed to behave in every way. I knew I had to behave every way as a teacher, but I did not realize that students were observing me that way. So you see that when that student asked me that question, madam, do you think it's nice to wear a sari and run? It just, it made me aware of something very profound, that as a teacher, I have to be a role model in every sense, not only in relation to teaching inside the classroom. So you see, so it is very important to have and to maintain standards because students follow us in every way. And as mothers and fathers, our children grow up looking at us, just like I was narrating some stories that happened during my childhood. I did not know I was following my mother. I did not know I was following my father. I did not know I was following my principal in wearing a sari. No, I did not know. But this happened in our subconscious mind. So as mothers and fathers, we need to know that our children grow up looking at us. And that the way that we behave define their behavior too. And then as authority, heads of institutes, our decisions affect our subordinates, fellow workers, and our decision making is influenced by our standards. So remember, we all know we have to make decisions at every level if we are professionals. Some kind of decisions, and our decisions affect everybody around us. So, but our decisions, how do we make our decisions? Our decisions are made by some standards, and they are definitely influenced by our standards. So what are our standards? It's very important to know what our standards are. And as colleagues, our work ethics affect those who work with us. So our work ethics means, again, our standards. So what are they? So now, when consequences of diluted standards, or diluted standards means not having standards. So what happens when we do not have standards, or when we have substandard versions of ourselves? We don't become standard setters, and we let it be like anything passes, anything is okay. And then we do not make the next generation become better selves. We do not make our next generation become better selves because we don't have standards. We are very substandard versions of ourselves. So you see, we become substandard versions of our professional and personal selves, both. It's not simply that our substandard versions stand for our personal selves. They stand for our professional selves also. Okay. Now, what do standards do? What do you think standards do? When we have standards, what do they do? Help us see where others fall short. Now, I can see people, when they wear saris, Kenyan saris, I can see, oh my God, what are they doing here? Actually, are they wearing a sari? What is this? Either the bust part is out, or the that waist between the sari blouse and the sari, it's half open. See, I'm not talking about styles. I'm not talking about fashions. because some may do this deliberately as fashion. I'm not talking about them because I have no problems in people for doing fashions. That's fine. But do we know that when we do these fashions, are we aware that it's a fashion? Or is it the only way we know? There's a big difference between these two. If you know that, okay, this is the fashion, I'm following that fashion because I like it, that's a different matter. But most of the time when you look at the next younger generation in Sri Lanka for that matter, they just do it, they just wear a sari for the sake of wearing it, and it could be the only way that they know. But and they fall very short of that standard that I have in mind. So when you have very clear standards, like I have when it comes to wearing the sari, my principal's, she is my role model, I can see when everybody falls short in wearing the Kandyan sari. And at the same time, we can advise our students, our younger generations to strive better. So since we know the standards, we can advise them, look here, if you do this way, it would be better, kind of thing. Or different ways of saying, like, maybe very strict discipline. No, you're not supposed to do that way, wear your dress here like that, because this is an educational institute, so you need to do it this way, kind of thing. So depends on how you want to approach that. At the same time, standards help us to strive to be better. At the same time, they help us to strive to do better. And then, what are your or our standards, both as professional and personal selves? So we need to think about this. We need to stop and think about it. What are my standards, both as a professional and as a personal, or as a person? As a teacher, I like to think about, as a teacher, the way I dress, the way I stand in front of my students, the way I talk to my students, not only in the classroom, even outside. How do I present myself as a teacher? And what kind of standards do I, do I want to present myself as a very strict person all the time? But then if that is the case, do I have consistency in my expectations of my students? Do I treat them, the way I expect them to behave, when they behave the way I expect them to behave? Do I have personal or favorite students kind of thing? So we have to think. There's no clear-cut answer to any of these, but we have to think about this. So what are my standards as a teacher? What are my standards as a parent? And what are my standards as a colleague? And as a sibling? Or as a head of an institute? Or as a citizen? What are my standards? So what are your standards? What are our standards? As I said, there's no particular answer to any of these. I just gave my experience related to, narratives related to my experience in growing up or as a teacher, professional. So we need to think about all these, standards in relation to these roles that we perform in society at different points of time. And the way to maintain standards, in my view, is that okay, let me read this. We can do many things to maintain high standards in performing our duties belonging to different roles we play in society. But number one thing is that we must make a conscious effort to develop standards first, because it is very important that we are very conscious about the standards, and we are making a very conscious effort to develop standards first. Because as I said, Now I got the time to stop and think about it, all that. Now I had the mood and the time and the energy to look back at the past that I left behind in Sri Lanka and think about it. Then I realized, oh my God, these are those small, the few narratives that I started this presentation with, has defined me a lot and defined my standards too. So, and I think no matter where we are, it's very important to sit back and think about this and then make a conscious effort. If we think, oh, no, it's not my stand, okay, what are my role models in talking, in behaving, in standing in front of my students, or in giving kind of punishment to my kids? What are my standards? Am I consistent with them? Kind of stuff. So once we make a conscious effort to develop standards first, then all that becomes like a second nature to us. And then be consistent in our approach to standards and maintain them is key to define ourselves as what we want to be, a standard person. Thank you very much. And I would like to hear what you think about this, and I would really like to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Attanaike. It has been a very, very interesting session. I'm so glad and delighted that you took lived experience as the space of your talk, because when we come to our area of women's studies, we are, there's this statement that personal is political, and even though we do not politicize things that way, but of course, the idea of having standards or having role models and actually living up to that entire thing has been discussed by you. You have actually done a retrospective study of your life, how you have come to the point that you have come to right now, and how people in your life, living people, your principal, your teacher, your mother, your father, they have served as units of measurement of the kind of standard that they would expect somebody to live up to in order to represent a true Sri Lankan, a true Sri Lankan social being, if I may say that, because I can relate to it very much, because I am a teacher's daughter as well, and I still remember that we were not allowed to play and we were not allowed to play the music system beyond a certain volume, even if everybody was enjoying, and we had these cassette players and all, and we were not allowed because my mother said, look, you are not supposed to play it beyond this particular, and also only between 11 a.m. to 12 noon. So 1 hour you can play it, that too at a reduced level. I was not allowed to wear jeans till I went to college. I was not sari. That sari thing was so relevant to me, ma'am, because I remember when I came down from the hills where I finished my graduation. I came down from the hills and I got an offer in a school, but the condition was that I had to wear a sari. So I had never worn a sari that way, but I knew what wearing a sari was and what a sari meant in the Bengali society, in the Indian society that I grew up in. So I said, I can't wear a sari. And that too, they expected, back in those days, the Bengali tater sari, which would be a cotton sari with a border, very difficult to manage for just somebody out of college. So I went into a negotiation with the principal and I said, I can wear a sari, but it has to be a synthetic sari, which I can wrap very fast and come on my scooty. So these kind of little negotiations with standards have to be done at times, because otherwise, in order to go on with the times, maybe somewhere, I see my daughter, I have a daughter. So I see my daughter wearing pants saris. The saris are actually saris, but you can wear them like pants, and you have the pleats and everything ready in place. So it's a 2-minute sari. So it's not a sari, ma'am. It's a dress of the subcontinent in various more or less, ways. When you go to Maldives, it's like a two-part. Then you have it in Sri Lanka, you have the Kandyan style. You come to Bangladesh, you have the Bengali shadi. You come to India, you have various types of saris with Sida Pallu, Ulta Pallu. And in Nepal, you have the cholo and the sari you have there. So, I think it's a pan-subcontinental dress, and you taking it up as a standard of measuring, I think it's a wonderful discussion, ma'am. I'm so overwhelmed. But then, ma'am, do you somewhere not feel, this is like a very simple thing. I just wanted to know that, do you somewhere not feel that standards can also, somewhere be reductive in women empowerment, or they can be utilized by the male patriarchy to, bracket women and keep them restricted to certain spaces?
Yeah, I completely agree. When I was discussing about what my mother was like telling us, like, kind of, you're not supposed to cry in front of others. And the thing that she said, that when my paternal grandmother was not very nice to her, she never told that to my father, kind of thing. Yeah, it crossed my mind also. That is true. I agree. Now, for instance, if you look at, now, I am married to a American here, but then the way I always tell him that you are not a 21st century American, you are an 18th century Sri Lankan, because he would like me to wear a sari all the time. And back in Sri Lanka, we lived in Sri Lanka for 7 years. He never let me wear any casual like slacks and all. He wanted always me to wear a sari, and even to cross the road, I used to say I had to wear a sari. I agree. But then on the other hand, this again my personal experience. On the other hand, when I went out with him not wearing a sari but wearing slacks or something, people in our societies, I know I lived in Delhi for 4.5 years. And we traveled in the whole South Asian region, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, everywhere. So people, if a South Asian woman walks in the street with a white person wearing slacks and all, we are not considered respectable. We are considered like, a very low grade person. So my husband told me, if you wear like that, people won't treat you respectfully. So, and then he started wearing a lungi, sarong, like Sri Lankan dress. So when he wore that, and I couldn't wear slacks and go out. So I had to listen to him, and somebody might think that it's patriarchal. Even I thought like that. Why would I have to listen to him all the time? Because it's my freedom, my life, but then I realized that there's a point in what he said, that when I wore the Kandyan, went out with him wearing a lungi, the approach people had towards us changed by 180 degrees. Then it was like, oh, madam, sir, oh my God, kind of thing. So I started seeing the points of that, instead of concentrating on, he trying to kind of subjugate me, kind of thing. So I'm not saying that. See, I changed my perception, and then it was easier for me to look at it that way. But it doesn't happen all the time that way, because sometimes men can be very, very subjugating. That I know. And in our rural societies, that can happen. In India, it happens a lot of time. Yeah, I agree, to what you say. Yeah, it can happen. But at the same time, looking at my mother, because my husband say your mother is a saint, I wish at least you had a little bit of her, kind of thing, because I am not a saint. I talk back, kind of thing. But again, see, it depends on the level of education of women too, and level of their ability to negotiate also. So, yeah. So I don't know. Did I answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Yes, yeah. I think that's very true. That in exceptional cases, ma'am, just a minute.
Yeah, no problem.
Extremely sorry for that disruption. There was somebody at the door, and there's
Oh.
like I almost live alone, so I had to just
No problem.
sorry for that, ma'am. But what I wanted to say is, yes, there are sporadic and exceptional cases where men do take advantage of
Oh,
this
yeah.
situation.
They do.
And they kind of restrict us and put us into brackets that you're not supposed to do. But ma'am, what I really liked about your presentation is you took it to the professional life. And when it comes to the professional life, having standards is very, very important. And that is where I would like to open the discussion to our dear participants. So if anyone has any question, you may kindly unmute yourself and ask ma'am directly.
Yeah,
That would be
please
nice.
do so, because I would really like to hear what you think about it. And if you are reluctant to speak up, I think there's this chat, option is there, so I can read them and then answer you, no problem. But please come out with your questions, your opinion, your idea, so that I can develop on this too, actually. Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you are. Leena, yes, you are.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Dr. Leena Pundir from the state of Uttarakhand. I teach in a government degree college in Devprayag. Well, your lecture was very enlightening. And like Sayukta ma'am said, that you spoke about setting standards in a professional life. I totally agree to that. But nowadays, I see there's a lot of pressure on working women to be perfect in every manner. No, they have to be very good in their jobs, they have to be good mothers, good wives, and they have to appear good also. So would you like to say something about this expectation of society, that the standards that the society has set for a working women? Aren't we women pressurizing ourselves over and over to be perfect in every sphere and dealing with all the pressures? But I mean, I believe working women should step back from achieving that perfection, because imperfection would, I won't call it imperfection, but then that would also be very nice. Your views on it, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, you are very correct. Because see, we all have stereotypes in our minds. Like, just as we are pressurized as working women and to maintain our standards, like both as professionals as well as, at our personal levels, I completely agree. But and then at the same time, now, what do we expect from our male counterparts? So we have our expectations as like, a perfect husband, a perfect breadwinner kind of thing. Not a breadwinner, because we contribute to, that breadwinning part. Yeah, I agree completely. But then do we agree upon fighting against this, the stereotypical portrait that men want to have of us? I agree, we need to fight, but in what ways? How? Because I can tell you with my own experience, as I said, so my husband wants me to be not very talkative, not arguing, not talking back, but I do all the same. And then does it mean that, well, I'm reflecting upon, it could be thinking aloud. Now, do I have the powers to talk like that because I earn or I contribute to, our income? No, I don't think so. Because this is my personal experience, because there was a time as soon as we came back to the USA, I didn't have the green card because I refused to be American for 7 years. I thought, no, I don't want to be American. Let me be Sri Lankan and travel on my brown passport with my brown skin, because I felt it was an insult to me to travel on a blue passport with a brown skin, so to speak. But then, even during that time, for about 1.5 years or so, I didn't work. But I don't think I ever stopped arguing or presenting my points when it comes to different matters of our life. So I think, yeah, there is a pressure, definitely a pressure. And I don't think we need to try to meet the standards set by the society or our, male counterparts. But I think what will help us there is to try to reach the standards that we have set for ourselves, both in our personal lives and professional lives. And having said that, but what are our standards? Are they very low or are they high? So that we have to think about, because I don't believe in kind of, I would say, compromising family life or peace at home at any point. In the sense, if our partners, if our husbands are majority of the time understanding and good, because if we try to think about, oh my God, they are subjugating all the time, they are trying to do this, they are the big, they want to be present themselves as sole breadwinners and all kind of stuff, by the same token, they also have such opinions about us. So we have to remember that also. So in the sense, what I'm saying is that we are also with a lot of flaws, the way we present ourselves and all. But I think it's simply how to find the middle ground is what I think we need to do. It's not simply that trying to meet the standards set by the society or our husbands or their parents, his parents. But no, what are our standards? How much can we reach there? And how much are we happy in trying to meet our standards is what matters. At the same time, trying to strike a balance. Did I answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much for asking that question. Yeah.
Thank you, Leena. Anyone else who wants to ask a question to ma'am or to write it down in the chat box?
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, Dr. Chatterjee and everyone. I'm Jayati Ganguly from Asansol. I'm a PhD research scholar at Diamond Harbour.
Jayati, you can just turn the volume up. Your volume is a bit down. Low.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, am I audible now? I'm sorry for the...
Yes, you are clearly audible.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Ma'am, I would just like, and firstly, thank you so much for that wonderful discussion. You've already shed light on a lot of important, pertinent issues. In fact, also Dr. Chatterjee has also taken up an important issue when she has talked about her daughter. Actually, in Bengal now, we are going to, there is an ongoing controversy when a huge celebrity like Mamata Shankar has spoken about or given a statement about draping the sari and all. Now, I don't know if I can ask a well-formed question, but what I would like to point out is that with this large part of our lives being constructed, conditioned, or directed by social media, where a large part of the new generation is being influenced, and even the conflicts are also, those intergenerational conflicts are also dissolving in some cases, where parents are not considering that as something wrong. The moral standards are also changing, transforming with this shift, with this idea of liberation, these new ideas of liberation, where the new age girls might say that change the gaze. Why would we change the drape? How do we standardize standards in that case, where even now the mothers who are not bothered by those conflicts so much, I mean, I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but I mean, when the social media is so influential, the moral standards are also changing. So, how do we standardize those standards? I mean, sometimes there is no conflict at all, but then what do we do then? How do we remember our conventional morality or values, or standardize one social standard? There is so much of trolling. There's so many voices now these days. So the whole idea of standardizing is changing with this social media and everything else. So
Thank you, Joyati.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joyati. It was a wonderful question, ma'am.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it is a very good question. I'll tell you one example as an answer to this. So recently, when I went to teach some college kids, here in the USA, USA standards, oh my God, like when it comes to student behavior and all, it's all over the place, and a lot of reasons are there. Lot of reasons. I find USA family structure is very fragile and all that. That's beside the point. But this narrative is that I told my students, you know what? If you finish your work 5-10 minutes before, we can have a nice discussion, right? And then they said, yeah, okay. So they finished their work and we had a kind of discussion. I asked some questions from them, like, okay, what do you want to be when you grow, when you grow old, like, when you fully kind of, Then they said, one guy said, you know what? I want to be a man. I said, what do you mean by that? Then he said, then everybody was very keen when he said that, I want to be a man. Then he said, what do you mean by that? Then he said, I want to finish college, I want to do a very good job, and I want to buy a car, and I want to buy a house. Then I said, that's very interesting, but look at me. In fact, I didn't think that I want to do this kind of thing when I was studying, but I just a little exaggerated. And I said, when I was studying, I want to go to college, I want to do a good job. I went to college, then I want to do a good job, I did a good job. And then I wanted to buy a car, I bought a car. And then if I wanted to buy a house, I could have bought a house too. But now look here, I am a woman. But then, I could do all that you said, and I want to be a man. I did all that as a woman. So what is the difference? Then I could see there was an moment, like everybody was like very keen. Yes, that's true kind of thing. Then I said, there has to be something different. If you say you want to be a man, there has to be something different. I think this guy wanted to put me in trouble by saying that. So, but then I kind of, I was able to turn the tables. Then I said, to me, you know what? To me, if you say you want to be a man, which means to me that you would want to respect women more than anything else. In my view, that is the meaning of being a true man, kind of. Then there were more moments, kind of, really kind of thing. So, then what happened, another instance where I was talking about, when we stand in front of you, when I stand in front of you, because obviously they can see that I'm not from America. So then I said, when I stand in front of you, what do I present? What do I represent? Then they said a few things which were not very directly relevant to what I asked or what I was looking for. Then I said, when I stand in front of you, I represent my upbringing. I represent where I come from. I represent my teachers. I represent my parents. Don't you think that I do represent all that kind of stuff. I had several occasions like that to speak with them different things, like different stuff, other than the syllabus, other than, the research, but they have been doing. So, you know what? We need to have a heart-to-heart talk with our students as to what our expectations are as standards today, because they do not know. They go with the flow. I don't think they talk about this liberation all the time. They take all those for granted and just simply go with the flow. But when you really open up yourselves in front of them, I'm talking in terms of this American experience, where there are no standards, anything and everything is okay with this student. But when you start talking with them, you know what? Now what happened? The moment some of the students see me, they would come running. Madam, which classroom are you in today? Then I would say this. Okay, I'll come to you and let's have a discussion, kind of thing. And one girl told me, after talking about this, standards and all, I started talking with them also. Actually, that's how I got this initiative or kind of inspiration that I need to talk about standards more. One girl said, after I talk about this, darn, nobody talks about this with us, kind of thing. So, but my advice to you, going with by my experience, is that as teachers, we have a very good platform to open up ourselves in front of our students, to talk about what our standards should be. Because parents go with all that. No, I don't think they think of liberation. I don't think they think of kind of, anything other than the fashion today. And as I said, standards are diluted and they become substandard. So in our eyes, they are substandard, but in their eyes, that is their standard, because they do not know any better. Sometimes, it could be liberation. Why shouldn't I be doing this if others can do that? Why should I be listening to somebody, some male who is, in my family or in my boyfriend or some? No, sometimes it can happen that way. But most of the time, I guarantee that nobody talks about these things openly as a kind of heart-to-heart talk. But I used to, back in Sri Lanka, whenever I got freshmen, first semester, within first few weeks, I would take 1 hour lecture time to talk about life, everything about life. And then I take with the same students towards the latter part of the semester, I take another 1 hour away my lectures and then have this heart-to-heart discussion. So, then they will realize something, that we are different. This teacher is different. So let us go to them. When they have a problem, they'll come to you. Because the problem with us is that we teach to the syllabus. We are very concerned with we cover in the syllabus, very concerned with doing the research, very concerned with following all the steps related to whatever the work we do, but we don't take time aside and just kind of, have a heart-to-heart talk. Because at home, I don't think they get this kind of time to discuss, even if their parents are aware of this. Like Dr. Sanjuta said that her daughter. So, whatever you say might not be very influential to your daughter, but the same thing coming from a teacher would be very influential. I know we had at some point I was doing a Bachelor of Education degree, and one of the invited lecturers was the Director General of the National Institute of Education in Sri Lanka. He came and told us that, one of his daughter's teacher was among us as a student. And he said, oh my God, if I want to say something, if I want to teach my kids something, I better talk to you because you are very influential in my kids' lives. So even though he is the Director General of the National Education system in Sri Lanka, his daughter could not be influenced by what he said, but his teacher, her teacher. You see, so we underestimate our influence as teachers. So that's where I think our power is, that if we open up and if we talk to them about our standards, our expectations and all, you would be amazed how much melting they would be towards us. Because remember, most of them do not know the standards. We take it that they think of liberation, they think of, going against their parents kind of stuff. Yeah, that is true. But that's because they do not know the standards. That's because standards are not given to them by somebody they respect. And here we are, most respectable teachers in their lives. So open up to them and then just communicate what we expect of them as standards. And you will be amazed. And let me know what your results are. I'm telling you. Yeah. And if you want I would really love to hear what, after you open up to your students, what they tell you. And here's my email address. Let me know. I posted it in my chat message. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. It's a wonderful direction that you've given. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for one.
Yeah. So
wonderful
open up.
deliberation. Just one addition to what you said and to Jayati, because both of us have. Jayati, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Of course, I'm here.
Yeah. So, you know what, Jayati, what I felt, of course, ma'am has spoken from her rich, varied experience of teaching. But
yes,
my rejoinder or thing that comes is from your take on the sari controversy, which I definitely would like to address here. And do we have any more questions in the session? Then I would actually speak about this at the end. Do we have any more questions from the participants? Please tell me, because we are running out of time. Anyone wants to ask any more questions to ma'am? Then please ask a short one, because we are about to end this session. It's been a very enriching session, and the ma'am has actually very resourceful. Okay, I don't think so that's relevant to us. Anyway, so I would just like to say this, that ma'am, what I felt was, yes, the standards are very much necessary. It is very, very important to follow standards when it comes to teaching, when it comes to sari wearing, when it comes to anything. But at the same time, ma'am, society should be a little more inclusive rather than being, harsh. Because along with the changing times, we have to take in certain things, and we must ensure that exception doesn't become the norm. If someone wants to show off her breast or her navel, let her do it. But at the same time, let us not be bothered about, bringing her to task for doing it. Of course, if it's obscene, then it's definitely a problem. If it's vulgar, it's a problem. But at the same time, ma'am, just because somebody wishes to wear a sari in a different way, or for example, you can see me wearing the chunni in this manner. Suppose I were to take this down and I wear it in one part. If that would be the measurement of my feminine existence, then that would be problematic in the contemporary Indian society right now. That actually lives up to the standards set up by the social media. Because the social media is a platform where this kind of thing is being promoted as a soft porn thing. I think Jayati will listen in and definitely agree with me that I'm talking about a society where you have a space for everybody. I'm talking about feminism where it accepts difference, where difference is the essence here, if we may talk about it. So I'm talking about contemporary Indian society. I'm not talking about the society that ma'am has grown up in, or the society that ma'am actually talks about. But we are also a part of the subcontinent, and your question, Jayati, was actually partly related to the controversy. So I thought of chipping in. And I had written a poem. So we have been very seriously discussing standards and all. So I had written a poem, and I would like to end this session with a poem. It's available on my Facebook page, because I am always on the social media. and if everyone likes it, I would like. It's not a poem; it's a comment. So it came after the sari controversy, and I said, no, you cannot speak for all women. No, you cannot divide women by classifying us as to which part of our body we must cover and which not. No, you cannot talk ill about my sister who earns her bread by her body. Question of legality is another issue. No, you do not know feminism. And yet, yes, you too can speak. I pity your limitation, but yes, you too must speak so that I know I am happily free to write against you and the likes of you. That is my rejoinder to the issue.
Excellent.
That's so wonderful, ma'am. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. That's so wonderful.
Excellent.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it
Thank
is
you so much.
excellent. Yeah, yeah, it is.
Thank you, ma'am.
You know,
And it's a wonderful session. So, with due permission, I would like to thank Professor Asantha Attanaike, ma'am, for being so kind, so resourceful, and such a wonderful topic from life you have taken. Yes, Adam, sir, is saying no, the rule to break it.
it's
Of
me.
course.
It's me. It's not
It's-
Adam. It's my husband. But he has logged on to my computer, and I didn't realize. So it's my name. It should be my name. But my take there is that know the rule to break it. But we have to understand that present our modern generation actually do not know there's a rule. We think that they break it, but they do not know the rule. So that is why teach them the rule and tell them that know the rule and break it.
Absolutely.
Don't
ma'am. Absolutely.
we should not assume that they know the rule. Most of them do not know. Yeah.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
yeah.
So with that, we should end the session, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And I'm very grateful that most of people started talking about it. And thank you very much for the organizers to have invited me, and I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. And Bhaskar, over to you now. Bhaskar, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So with that, I thank everyone for giving me a wonderful opportunity of sharing this particular session. I'm honored. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am. And one more thing, actually, where Asantha ma'am presently resides, it is actually 10.5 hours behind us. That means it is almost 1:30.
No, now it's 3:30 in the morning.
3:30 in the morning.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we are 10.5 hours behind you.
Yes. In spite of that, ma'am has delivered the lecture, and she has
Wonderful, ma'am.
responded to
Your
our
dedication
lectures.
is something. Yeah, that is the standard we look up to.
No, and I'm sorry, Dr. Bhaskar asked me whether I could chair a session. I don't think I can because now I have to sleep.
No, ma'am. I can't, ma'am. I just asked it. You were telling me that you were returning to Sri Lanka. That's why I asked you. Okay, ma'am. No.
Okay, then.
Ma'am, I shall contact you. Thank you.
Please, sure, do that. And then I gave my email address, and even Dr. Bhaskar, you are allowed to give my WhatsApp number and all.
Ma'am,
No
if
problem.
anyone asks me, I will certainly share. Ma'am.
Yeah, but make sure you send me a message first because I get telephone calls in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, because time difference. So always check our time is New York time. So before you call, just check what the New York time is, and then call
Thank
accordingly.
you, ma'am. Thank you, Bhaskar. I would like to leave now.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Yeah.
So to all of the participants, now we are just coming to an end of this session, and we will be joining back in different Google Meet for the technical session, and it will be held in 3 sessions, and all the paper presenters will be contacted. If anyone does not know about the schedule, then he will be contacted. Okay. So this much for this session. We'll be back at 2 p.m. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.